What up, everybody? Welcome to Harry Dating Convos. This is the show where we talk about dating, relationships, and everything else in between. I'm your host, as always, HarryWilmington. Welcome back. It's been a while. I've been out of the country. I've been traveling the last 3 or 4 weeks. I'm finally able to be back in my wonderful apartment to record a show and talk just to you. So thanks for joining me today. I'm your host, HarryWilmington, and today our main topic of discussion is going to be the 7 ways that people tend to sabotage their relationships. This is both men and women. The 7 ways that often we are unaware, we unintentionally do these things that end up sabotaging what could have been a great relationship, whether it's you're dating somebody or whether you're in a long-term relationship. These are the things that people bring to these situations that result in things starting to go haywire. And a lot of times, we don't think it should be a thing. We don't think it's our fault. We don't think it's anything we're doing. But if we're more aware of what's happening, we can fix those things. So we're going to talk about that. Plus, we're going to talk about a bunch of other various things. And of course, this show is ultimately about you. So if you have any questions about your dating life, about anything we're talking about that you want to ask, you can go ahead and leave your comment in the chat, and I will be happy to get to it. As always, this show is brought to you by my website, HarryWilmington.com. You can go there to check out my various ebooks, my audiobooks, and my program, such as my very popular Get Girls Academy, which looks like this. As always, this show is brought to you by Get Girls Academy, my exclusive program designed to help you attract, date, and keep the women you want. As a member, you'll gain access to proven strategies, insider tips, and bi-monthly group coaching sessions where we tackle your biggest questions live. Click the link in the description to learn more and join today. So yeah, you can check that out at HarryWilmington.com. Also, guys, I just want you to know right now, I am in the process of working on a brand new book. So there have been many of you guys that have come to me and said, Harry, I don't know how to approach women. I'm trying to figure out the right thing to say, what to do, where I should be approaching women. And so I've actually been putting together a book that's going to talk about the ins and outs of how to actually approach women in any environment using a very special technique that I have found works wonders to be able to get rid of anxiety and to be able to approach women boldly without pressuring them and without feeling pressure on yourself to make it more than the interaction actually is. And that way you can actually enjoy approaching women instead of being afraid of it. And so right now I'm editing that book together. I'm still putting together the cover page and some other stuff. So I want to say it'll be about a month out from now. And so at some point, there's going to be a pre-sale link that you can go to if you want to pre-order the book, but that'll be coming out within the next month. So stay tuned for that. All right. So with all that said, let's go ahead and jump into today's primary topic, which is 7 ways that you often sabotage your relationship. So I'm going to tell you how I came up with the topic of today. I recently went out of town, and while I was out of town, I reconnected with a friend of mine, and so we went out to lunch and had a conversation. And this friend of mine was telling me about a new person that they were dating and that they were very excited to date them because they hadn't dated a person like this before. And I said, well, what do you mean? This is a woman that I'm talking to, right? And so the woman said that up to this point, she's dated a lot of guys that, had a lot of money and worked a 9-to-5 job. And she just found that they were always very, very busy and emotionally unavailable. And so she decided to date against her type. And so she went for a guy that he makes money, like he's able to support himself. He's able to take her out on dates. But she found that he's not making the same level of money that she's making, on top of the fact that this guy is very much a freelancer. And any of you people that know about the freelancing world, depending on what you're doing in the freelancing, the money can come and go, and it's not always the most reliable. So for example, out here in California, part of what I do on the side is I do freelance videography. People hire me out to go places to film events and interviews and parties and weddings and stuff like that, right? But being a freelancer, the job isn't one where it's like steady hours. You're not always sure where money's going to come from. You don't know if or when you're going to get your next gig. Like, you're going to put yourself out there in hopes that people will see that you do good work and that they want to hire you, but it's not as guaranteed as, say, a 9-to-5 job, right? And so she said that although they've been dating for a few months now and she really likes him, probably the best guy she's dated, she has noticed that they've oftentimes bickered about what she considers to be small things. And I said, what are those things? And she said, well, I tend to get very nervous about the fact that he's just a freelancer and that he's not making as much money as me, and that ideally he'd become more ambitious and would like to do things that are going to put him in a position to make more money. And this is a thing that I've heard a lot of women, especially a lot of boss babe women, complain about how they're making a lot of money and how their man is currently just content. Like, the man is just content doing what he's doing, whether it's a blue collar job or whether it's a freelance job where he's able to choose his own hours and decide his schedule and stuff like that. Now, to her credit, she said this guy ultimately, and I guess, I don't know if part of the personality of a freelancer is that they're more emotionally open, but she has said that he tends to be a bit more emotionally open. I often ask women what that means. And what I have found is that when women say they want a guy that's more emotionally available, they often mean they want a guy that's more open to their emotions and more open to when they break down and when they're having problems, not necessarily that they want the guy to be more emotional. So as a guy, you got to know that women are telling you they want you to be more emotionally available. That's not what they actually mean. What they actually mean is they want you open to their emotions. If you as a guy start trying to blab all these feelings and thinking you're doing what she wants, spoiler, that's not what's happening. All right. But anyway, so as she was telling me this, I just had that thought in my head of what my mom used to say, which is when you start dating somebody, at the point that you start dating them, you have to take them on as they are, flaws and all. You cannot assume that if you get with somebody, that if they love you enough, they're going to change up and do the things you want them to do. But that's just one example of a way that people oftentimes end up sabotaging their relationships, is that they go into a relationship expecting a thing, and then, or they go into it thinking that, well, however this other person is, at the point that they really love me, they're going to change up. And we're going to talk about that more when I get into the 7 reasons. But that got me thinking about what are other things that people tend to do in relationships that unintentionally sabotage what could be a good thing. Because when you get with somebody, however you meet them and how you come to them, that's going to be how they are. But oftentimes, I think we have certain expectations of what a relationship should look like and how it should be and the way people should be acting. And I keep telling you guys, you can't should a relationship to death, because that's going to be the death knell for your relationship. Okay. And so what I want to get into is 7 examples of things that people do that end up sabotaging. And I'm going to give examples of both how women do this and how men do this, so you'll get a clearer view of what this looks like, and hopefully you'll stop doing it. All right. So let me just pull up my notes here. The first way that I just talked about that people sabotage their relationships is you secretly hope the other person is going to change. What does this look like? Well, let's say in this example that I just told, let's say you're a woman, right? And you start dating a guy who's not ambitious. He's like, hey, I got a 9-to-5 job that works for me. It's guaranteed money coming in. Sure, it's only $60,000 or $70,000 a year, but I'm content. It's enough to support me. If I have kids, it's been enough to support them, and I am good. And a woman will look at that man and say, that's great, but I think he could do better. He has the talent for this, and I think he could turn that into a business of some kind. And so you know what? As we get to know each other more and we get more serious, then he's going to want more for his life, and he's going to be willing to change those things. He's going to grow up. He's going to take on that job, or he's going to take on that habit that he has, that hobby that he has that could make him $100,000 plus a year. And so that's what's going to happen. And then cut to like 2 or 3 years later, the guy has done none of that stuff. And now the woman's pissed off because he won't change. He won't do better for himself. I thought he would do whatever, right? And then so for men, what does this look like? Is let's say you're dating a woman that a guy's dating a woman that's very, very flirtatious. From the day they met, they would go to clubs, go to parties, and she would be, putting her hand on other guys' shoulders or blowing them kisses and stuff like that. And the guy's thinking, okay, she's doing that now because we're not super serious. But you know what? Once she falls totally in love with me and she realizes that I don't like that kind of behavior, she's going to change it up. She done been flirting her whole life, and now you're thinking that she's going to magically change that up because she feels some kind of way about you, and you're supposed to be together, and that's not how women should act, right? So these are two examples of both a man and a woman assuming that the other person is going to change simply because they've fallen in love, and it's going to make them see the error of their ways or make them realize that their behavior is not liked by their partner, and it's going to switch up. And I just fundamentally don't believe you can do that. How do I know that? Been there, done that, tried it. And for example, I'm a very entrepreneurial person, right? I've dated several women now who, to be fair, have made six figures, so they're already making a decent amount of money, but I've seen them go to work and they seemingly act miserable. They complain about their job all the time. And I see opportunities that they have to take on something that's more entrepreneurial, whether they're good cooks, whether they're good organizers or good party planners. And I'll be like, hey, you have this talent. You could conceivably be doing this other thing that would make you happier, and you can make your own money, your own hours and whatever, right? You could start your own business. And after about the second woman I dated where I mentioned that and they expressed, oh, that sounds like a good idea, and they're not doing it, I was getting frustrated. And then I realized, wait a minute, admittedly, being an entrepreneur and trying to start your own path and starting your own business, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of unpredictability. And if you're a person that thrives on guaranteed money coming in and things being stable, entrepreneurship is never going to be for you. So I had to learn that if I saw talent in a woman I was dating and she didn't want to turn that into a business, I couldn't get mad about that, because at the end of the day, however I met her and whatever type of thing she was into or not into, she's going to be that way. So I can't assume that if I start dating a woman that likes going to a job, that I can just magically turn her into an entrepreneur because she loves me and I see so much stuff in her. No, I have to go into it knowing that if she never takes on the entrepreneurial role, I got to be cool with that. And that's true of a lot of things. If you're dating a woman that's anxious, if you're dating a woman that doesn't like to clean stuff, if you're dating a woman that likes to curse at everything, don't think that she is going to change just because she loves you. It'd be nice if she did change, just like for women. It'd be nice if, hey, that guy decided, hey, you know what? I'm with a woman now and I need to make more money, so I'm going to take on a more entrepreneurial thing and start my own path. They may never do that. And so I think people sabotage their relationships because they keep harping on this other person to turn into a version of themselves that they were never going to be. It's almost as if you're going into the relationship with a pre-plan for how this person should actually be once you get to them, and they weren't in on that plan, which means they didn't agree to it. So you sign them up to fail, and then you're mad at them because they're failing at something that they never said they were going to do in the first place. And so you have to know going in, you may have all these intentions for how they're going to be, but you have to look at how they actually are and ask yourself, if this person never changes, will I be completely fine with how they are? If you realize that you're not going to be, that's totally fine. You can't decide to then continue to go into that relationship and then be mad at them the whole time and resent them for not being the version of themselves that you want them to be. All right? Very, very key. The second way that people sabotage their relationships is you turn every conflict or disagreement into a fight. Now, I've heard this thing that people say, which is that, relationships are hard and we have our ups and downs and every couple fights. I got news for you. Not every couple fights. Yes, not every couple has to have a yell, knockout, drag down, all in, be all fight that's going to be tumultuous and have hurt feelings, all this stuff. Like, people think that things have to be that way because they've been told by other people who are also bad at relationships that fights are necessary, and that's not a thing. Now, notice I didn't say conflicts aren't necessary. You can have a conflict with another person. You can say, hey, just so you know, you leave your stuff out on the counter sometimes, and I wish you would fix that. Or you could say, hey, you come in late sometimes without telling me. I wish you would just let me know. Like, it's perfectly fine to have conflicts because just naturally, when you get with another person, you two are going to have lived different lifestyles and be into different things. And as a result of that, sometimes you're going to unintentionally do things that's going to annoy that other person. And those are things that you can talk about. What you don't have to do is take every little thing personally and turn it into a fight where you're trying to defend your honor and say, you're trying to hurt me and this and that. And people do that all the time. So for example, a woman might say to a guy, let's say she wants to go out that night, and maybe he promised her a date night, and he gets home that day and it's just like, you know what, babe, I'm so exhausted. I had a harder day at work than I thought I was going to have. So I just want to stay in and chill and relax tonight. Rather than her saying, okay, no problem, I understand, I totally get it. What does she do? Take it personally. Oh, you just don't want to spend time with me and your work's more important and you promised this to me and you're just blah, 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 blah. And so it goes from like her being understanding of him being tired to like, now it's all about how you don't want to spend time with me. And now you just don't really like me and all this other stuff. And now they're having a big old fight about stuff that didn't have to be happening. Or in the case of a guy, let's say, they're out with friends and the guys like make some kind of joke at her expense, right? And everybody laughs at it and whatever. And she's kind of hurt by that. So they go home, and in the privacy of their home, because she's not trying to embarrass him, she says to him, hey, just so you know, like this thing you said at dinner, I took it kind of personally, and I really didn't like the way that was said. I wish you could not do that in the future. Rather than hearing his wife and being like, oh, my bad, I didn't know that hurt your feelings, I'll try not to joke that way in the future. The guy will be like, you just can't take it joking. It wasn't anything personal. Why do you got it? Blah, 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 blah. And now they're having a knockout, drag out fight. And people do this because they don't want to see that they potentially did something that hurt the other person or that made them feel a certain way. And so rather than take that in, their ego gets hurt. And now they feel like they got to defend themselves because I'm so great. I would never intentionally do a thing. And now I got to fight her because she's just acting whatever and they're acting rational, whatever. And again, there's no need for that. Sometimes your partner's going to say something you did that was upsetting, and there's going to be a disagreement about it, and that's fine. You can have a cordial conversation without it leading to yelling and fighting and name calling and all this other stuff. If you're not able to do that, then yes, you are sabotaging your relationship over things that can be easily resolved if you would just be willing to sit down and talk about it instead of try to fight about it all the time. The third way that people tend to sabotage their relationships is they react first and then they process it later. What does this look like? Let's say a woman sees her boyfriend liking a woman's photo on Instagram, right? And she immediately just starts being like, oh, I can't believe you're still liking other girls' pictures. I can't believe it. Why are you still acting like you're single? That's it. You know what? I don't want to talk to you anymore. I'm done. And then she finds out later it was a cousin of his, and she had just gotten back from a trip and was holding up some kind of really cool like ornament that she got, and he was liking that on a family member's page, and she was tripping. And then she comes back later, oh, my bad, I didn't know, blah, 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 blah. But she didn't even give him a chance to like explain himself or explain what was going on or who the girl was, etc. Right? And so she reacted first, she made an assumption, and then she was able to process later what was going on and like, oh, my bad. And guys do this too. For example, a woman might mention to her guy, oh, so-and-so, this guy gave me a ride home because my car broke down and you weren't available and he was the only way to give me a ride. And so because we worked together, it was like, cool, no problem. And dude starts flipping out. How could you accept a ride from another guy? You should have just stayed at work, and how dare you? And you're trying to cheat on me and blah, 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 blah. And so again, he flies off the handle. And it comes back later and is like, hey, you know what, my bad. It wasn't really a big deal. But at that point, you done called her out her name. This guy done hurt her feelings and all this other stuff that wasn't necessary. And too many people do this, especially when it comes to like taking criticisms. Like I've been in situations, for example, where I'm dating a woman and they do something that unintentionally like bothers me or annoys me or hurts my feelings. And I'll go to them and say, hey, so I just want you to know, like, I don't think you intentionally meant to do this, but like when you said or did this thing, this is how I reacted to it. And before I can even finish the sentence, oh, that's not what I meant. How dare you? And you're always blaming me. And oh my God, I'm crying. And then they all cry and have a hissy fit and want to start a fight. And then cut to a few hours later. Hey, so you were right. My bad. I'm sorry I did that. I was tripping. But at that point, I'm now in a bad mood. I don't want to be around the other person. And I'm thinking to myself, they could have, the way they're responding now, they could have just done that early on or asked me for clarification. And I would have told them again, I don't think you did something on purpose, but this is how I took a thing, and then just taking the feedback. And I think a lot of times because our egos don't want to take feedback, that we're always in the position of anytime somebody complains about me in some way, I have to automatically defend my honor. And we do that first instead of saying, wait a minute, before I go crazy on this person, let me think about the fact that they love me and they care about me. And so what they're telling me probably isn't a harmful thing. Or like in the case of like the male coworker taking, your girl home, for example, wait a minute, we've been together for 3 years. I know she loves me. I don't think she'd be letting another dude take her home and doing something with that guy. She probably just needed a ride. I'll take it as such, right? Like we get so hung up on the things that we want and what we need and what people are trying to do or not do to us, to do things to us, that we're automatically on high alert to just be ready to defend ourselves, versus taking a second and pausing and processing what the other person is saying to us or doing to us that probably isn't all that negative, and then saying, oh, maybe I don't need to trip out over this. But if you are constantly being that person that's like ready to interrupt your partner when they're trying to explain something to you, or they're trying to, do certain things, and you're like, oh no, and you're reacting first, understand you reacting first is never going to be a winning strategy if you're trying to be with a person that you want to hear you out and listen to you, and vice versa. Like, it's got to be give and pull. You want them to listen to you, fine. So you got to listen to them. And then also, beyond just listening, because people always say this thing of like, well, they need to communicate better. Sometimes people communicate perfectly fine. It's the other person's reaction that is actually outlandish. And so you got to learn to curtail your reactions, guy. Like, because here's the thing, especially with women want to be really open with you. And if every time they're open with you, you're flying off at the handle, same for women. Women, if every time your guy comes to you and is open with you and your result is to just be reactive, you're going to cause them to want to shrink and to not tell you stuff. And then you're going to be hurt later when you feel like they're lying to you, when the reality is no, just they didn't want to deal with your reaction, because it's always an overbearing reaction that doesn't merit the response that they're getting from you. Just saying. The fourth way that people tend to sabotage their relationships is you nag, hit, or are overly sarcastic to your partner, both in private and in public. For those of you that aren't in the pickup community, nag hitting is where you give an underhanded compliment to somebody, but it's also a backhanded insult. And, people think it's sarcastic, it's funny, it's jovial, but you never know if that thing that you're saying is actually really digging into that person in a way that to them feels harmful. So for example, let's say that, while you're out, say for a woman, let's say while you guys are out with friends, a woman jokingly says to her guy, look at how he's dressed. You wouldn't know how to dress if it weren't for me. Now, to her, she's just joking. But to him, he's like, why you got to insult my style choice? Like, you met me and started dating me, so you must have liked something about it. But like, why are you saying this in front of other people, bro? What's going on? And so, at that point, that stings. And then when they go home later, the guy's like, hey, again, you said a thing about my clothes. You kind of dug at me a little bit in public. That's not cool. And her response is, you're just being too sensitive. You need to be more of a man and suck it up. I'm not a fan. And then the other way for men, let's say you're at a dinner and the man says about his wife, she's got a big mouth, but I love her anyway. LOL. Well, the family laughs. She might even laugh in public. And you get home and find out, oh, actually, she didn't like that because it feels very humiliating. And then the guy's response is like, oh, it's no big deal. I mean, you do kind of have a big mouth, but I didn't mean it in a mean way. Look, it doesn't matter how you mean stuff. It matters how the other person takes it. If you are joking on your spouse or significant other, or, you're being jokey with them in a way that they don't really like, and they tell you about it, and you're still like, you need to just deal with it, you are now sabotaging your relationship because they don't feel like they're being heard and understood. And also, I just grew up in a household where I was taught you speak life into your partner and you speak positivity. So even if they have the most annoying habit at home, whether she leaves her socks around or whether he doesn't do the dishes the right way, in public, you bringing that stuff up, what is the point of that? Like, in public, you two are a unit. So if you're joking on him in a negative way, or he's joking on her in a negative way, all the public is seeing is like, wow, they're really digging at each other. Do they even like each other? And that's not the kind of message you want to give out to other people about your relationship. So you got to be mindful. It's perfectly fine to be jokey with your partner, but try to do it in a way that's not a dig at them, because it looks bad on you as much as it does on them. The fifth way that people sabotage their relationships is they never give their partner a break from them. And I've seen this a lot of times whereby, for example, a woman's with a guy who just never wants to leave her alone. Like, anytime she's going somewhere, he's got to be there. Anytime she wants to have a girls' night out, he's like, well, why can't I go? I mean, are you ashamed of me, or blah, 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 blah? Or for women, it's like, a guy can't go hang out with one of his female longtime best friends or female family member without her wanting to be there. Or the woman that's constantly texting a guy nonstop, and then if there's like a pause for even 5 minutes, she's like, where you at? What's going on? Why aren't you responding to me? Like, I get that people want to be with their people, and They get highly interested to the point where they want them around all the time. But just because you want the person around all the time doesn't mean that you need to actually have them around all the time. Because I come from the school of like, before I met a person that I'm with, I was a solo entity. And there were times where I liked being in my room by myself, watching TV, doing nothing, going to the park by myself, jogging, working out with nobody else there. Just like when I'm dating women, I've had to tell women that I've been with, hey, look, it's okay with me if you need to do things by yourself. If you need to have a girls' night with just your girls, have a good time. If you need to go on a mini vacation by yourself, go ahead and do that. Like, I'm not so insecure that I think anything bad's going to happen if you're away from me for a while. And also, being introverted, I need my alone time. So I don't want them to want me around all the time. But people get so in their ego about that, and they think that, well, if they don't want me around all the time, what does that say about the relationship? What does that say about their feelings for me? Do they even really like me? You know what? I need to be around them all the time so I'm assured that they like me. And that is very much going to sabotage a relationship, because it is so much energy to have to always worry about another person because they're always there. It is nice to be able to get back to yourself and just be in your own space and have your own thoughts without having to worry about or think about what another person there is going to be thinking about it, or being able to do certain actions by yourself that aren't going to be judged by another person because they're not there. And if you're not able to do that, especially for guys, just be real, guys, I get that we get into a situation where we really love and care for a person and we want to be on them all the time. If you find that you're that type of person and you're constantly losing relationships, a part of it could be because that woman, she wants to be able to tell you that she needs time away from you, and she feels like she can't because you're going to be butthurt, or you're going to have hurt feelings, or you're going to be trying to like beg up on her for, please spend more time with me and please text me. And it's going to be very, very annoying. All right. So just understand that you cause a lot of damage to your relationship when you don't give the other person a break, especially because other people that you're dating need time to miss you. If you never build in time for that other person to sit and think about what it's like to have you around without you actually being around, then you're doing a huge disservice to your relationship and their feelings for you. The sixth way that people sabotage their relationships is putting expectations on their partner as proof that they love you. So unfortunately, women are famous for doing this. They'll say things like, well, if you really love me, then you know what I want without me having to tell you about it. Or, well, if you really cared about me, then you would stop following certain people online, whether it's Instagram models or friends and family. And hey, to be fair, I tell guys they shouldn't be following like all these extra models and stuff like that. But again, using the thing as like, well, I expect you to be this way, or I thought you'd do this or that, not a good look. And again, men did this too. They say things like, well, if you actually cared about me, you cut off your guy friends, or you wouldn't take a certain job, or, well, you'd let me be the breadwinner and you quit that job so I could feel like a man, and blah, blah. And I've heard people say this before, right? So it's like, understand, it's perfectly fine to go into a relationship and expect certain things from your partner. Like, I expect them to treat me well. I expect them to want to spend time with me. I expect them to, treat me well and do right by me and want to plan dates and stuff like that. Totally fine. But certain expectations that you put on other people, again, this goes back to like, you can't expect people to be a certain way without them being part of that plan. So you, for example, a woman saying, well, I expect you to, to do the dishes more, blah, 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 blah. Well, if he wasn't doing dishes in the beginning, what are you doing putting that on him now, Or, well, I expect you to, to not talk to certain family members. Well, if they had a good relationship with them before, why are you expecting them to like not do that now? Like, and people do that because I think people feel as though the only way a person can show love is by proving to them that they're willing to sacrifice certain things or do certain things that they wouldn't normally do as a means of showing that they're willing to step up and do more for, which then shows that they must love them by proxy. And that is not a way to run a relationship. Like, again, it's fine to have expectations of certain types of like love and care, but certain actions or giving up certain things or doing certain whatevers, like, that's not a great way to go into a relationship, because people are going to always eventually like not live up to your expectations. Like, I'm sorry. Like, if I'm dating a woman, for example, I do this. I date coach, and there have been women I've dated in the past that were like, well, I don't think you should be doing that because X, Y, and Z. And I would tell them, if you don't want me to be giving out advice to guys, this isn't going to work. Like, I know you're expecting me to give this up because we're dating now, and how dare I coach other guys into manipulating women and blah, 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 blah. But like, I've been doing this forever and a day. So you're not going to stop me from doing this just because I care about you. And some women have been cool with that. Other women fought me tooth and nail until I had to let them go. But the point is that either way, whatever their expectation was, I wasn't going to meet that. And me not giving this kind of thing up isn't my way of showing them that I love them, but some people think that. And so if you're a guy in this situation or you're a girl in this situation where you're dating somebody that's throwing on these expectations like, oh, give up your friends, don't go hang out anymore, or you got to be in by a certain time or curfew, like understand that's going to sabotage your relationship in the long run. And if you're the person that's doing those kind of things, understand you're going to lose that other person, or they're going to build up so much resentment that your relationship is going to be miserable, especially to that other person. And then the seventh way that people sabotage their relationships is justifying their actions even when they're in the wrong. So what does this look like? Well, let's say for a woman, a woman snaps at a guy in public. It's like, how dare you, blah, blah, this and that. And then later on, the guy brings it up and her response is, well, I mean, you embarrassed me first, so I had every right to react that way. Or, well, I can react however I want to react because that's just how I react. And so I famously have heard women say things like, let's say a man goes up to her and is like, hey, just so you know, like, you never apologize for anything. You never say, I'm sorry. And the woman will say, well, I mean, I just feel like what I was doing was right. And so if I had a reason to apologize, I think I would do it, but I just don't see one because I'm not at fault. I tell men to run from those kind of women because a woman that's not able to ever say, I'm sorry, my bad, or whatever, they're putting it all on the guy. But again, guys do this as well. Let's say, as a guy, you guys get into she comes with you and says some kind of complaint. And so you decide you're going to just stonewall her and ignore her for a day. And then she comes back and is like, why weren't you talking to me? Like, that's not cool. And the response is like, well, I mean, that's just how I deal with things. You got to get used to it and blah, blah, blah. Right. So understand there's going to be times where your reaction actually is justified, but there's going to be a lot of times where a person's going to come to you and say, hey, this wasn't cool. I didn't like that, whatever. And if every time that happens, your response is, well, I'm in the right. And well, I had a reason behind what I did. Therefore, I'm perfectly justified. And if you didn't want that to happen, you should have done X, Y, and Z. You can be that kind of person. You're going to lose relationships because people don't want to feel as though you're going to never take responsibility for your part in things that are going on in the relationship. There are going to be times where as a guy, you're going to flip out and you got to go back later and say, hey, you know what? I realized even though the thing you did made me mad, I could have handled that better. My bad. For women, there's going to be times where your guy's just not going to do things in the way that you want them done because as men, we process things differently and think about doing things in a different way. And so you might not like the way he does stuff, but you going to him and saying, well, you need to do it my way because X, Y, and Z, and I don't care how you do stuff and you think you're right, you're going to lose relationships. And so understand these 7 things I just went over. These are things that people do because their egos are bruised. They get hurt. They're on the defensive. They're anxious. And you can be that way, but the people that you're in relationships with don't have to choose to deal with that long term. And so you got to decide early on, okay, do I need to be a person that is always trying to change other people? Do I need to be a person that's going to turn every single conflict into a fight? Do I need to be a person that is going to constantly react to things first and then try to apologize later? Do I need to be a person that's going to constantly be sarcastic and naked my partner in public? Do I need to be a person that's going to be so super clingy and have to always have my partner around? Do I need to be a person that's going to be constantly putting expectations on somebody or trying to make them prove to me their love? Do I need to be a person that is always right and is able to constantly justify? If you need to be that kind of person, you're going to be constantly sabotaging relationships because people don't want to deal with people like that in the long run. So consider some of the things I've gone over and see if there's ways for you to change yourself from being that kind of person. And again, I stress that a lot of this stuff is the result of things that went on in our childhood or ways that we grew up processing relationships that shouldn't actually be things. If you need help with that kind of stuff, I got a bevy of videos on my YouTube channel at HarryWilmington that you can look over, but also you can sign up for one-on-one coaching at HarryWilmington.com. You can also go there to check out my Get Goals Academy, which has a bunch of programs in there that go over these kind of things so you can modify your mindset and start getting into the way of being that's going to be more conducive to a relationship that can go for the long distance. So hopefully some of what I said has helped you out. All right. So now on to other parts of the show. So I have a bunch of other things I want to go over, but your questions are the most important. So you got a question you want to leave in the chat, I will happily be willing to answer it. And let's start with the ones we have here. Let's see. So we just have a random comment in the chat that says, we have a random comment in the chat that says, I've been taking your advice and approaching a ton of women. I don't always ask for the number, but just the approach itself is good practice. Exactly. And I think, I don't know if I'm going over an approach question, because I had something about approaching that. Oh no, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm doing a whole book. I'm writing a book about the various ways to approach women and how to do it in a variety of different environments. And so that's going to be coming out within the next month. But yeah, like I talk a lot about approaching because so many men are afraid to approach women in public. And a lot of that is based on anxiety. It's based on past instances where we tried to connect with a woman in public or at a party or whatever, and they rejected us. And so I've honestly found, and again, the book really goes over extensively the kinds of approaches and stuff to do and how to get past the mindset of being afraid about that. But basically, in terms of approaching, I find that the biggest problem men have is they don't do enough approaches to where they're not so bogged down by getting rejected. Like if you're a guy that's only approaching like one woman a month or one woman every other month, right? You're not getting enough practice to not let rejection bother you. And so what I found is that you have to do so many approaches, not a whole lot, but just enough approaches to where when you hear a no, you're not bugged by it. I've also found that if you start gamifying certain parts of the dating game, you will find that rather than taking it personally, you'll come at, instead of coming at these things from an emotional perspective, like, oh, if they reject me, I'm so hurt. You'll take it from a gaming perspective. And what is a gaming perspective? A gaming perspective is this, is that think about when you're playing like Mario, Zelda, or something, right? If you end up dying in the game, you don't take it personally. You just say, okay, I learned a maneuver to not do. I learned a way to not do a thing when I'm trying to approach a certain bad guy or beat a certain boss, whatever, right? And so I found gamifying approaching also benefits men. And so, for example, rather than running from rejection, imagine if you said to yourself, all right, I'm going to go out there today. I'm going to go to the mall, and my objective is to approach 10 women. Notice I didn't say the goal is to succeed with getting 10 girls' numbers. I said the goal is to approach 10 women. Whether it's with the hi, hey, how you doing? Nice outfit, whatever, blah, blah, blah. My goal is to approach 10 women and just see where it goes. Now, you'll find in approaching those 10 women, maybe like 5 walk away from you, maybe 2 give you like a courteous smile, but there might be 3 there that engage in a little bit of banter to where you feel comfortable enough asking for a number. And then let's say 2 of those girls reject you, but you get 1 girl that says, here's my number, right? Whether it's a working number or not, you get a number. So you approach 10 women, you had 3 to talk to you, and you got 1 number. That, my friends, is very successful, but also after like the 5th woman, you're not going to be like, oh, I'm getting rejected. You'll just be, because your focus isn't on the rejection. Your focus is on the task of getting 10 approaches in. So you'll get rejected by that 5th girl, and you'll be like, oh, good. Now I can move on to number 6 instead of, oh, 5 girls rejected me. And I have found that doing that is a very, very easy way to get past approach anxiety. But again, I'll go into a number of those things in the book. But thank you very much for your comment because, like I said, the approach itself is always good practice. And I tell guys, hey, go to locations where women have to talk to you. Grocery stores, go to malls, that like clothing stores where you have to approach women like that are working there and be like, hey, I'm trying to find this shirt. I'm trying to find this outfit or these shoes. Where can I find them? Just starting with that, you'll start getting to the habit of like not being so nervous of seeing a girl and approaching, because you'll be practicing when I see a girl, go approach her. When I see a sales clerk, go approach her. When I see somebody at a hot dog cart, go approach her. And then you'll get into the habit of every time I see a girl, go approach. When I see a woman over there, go approach. Then you'll randomly be in public and you'll see a woman and your thought will instantly be, oh, I see a girl, go approach, because you've practiced that so many times. And again, focus on approaching women. Don't focus on getting any specific outcome. You start by practicing with approaches, and then down the line, you can say, okay, I'm going to go a little bit bigger. I'm going out there today. I'm going to approach 10 women and ask 10 women for their number and just see what they say. And again, you're not taking it personal because you're gamifying it. And the goal is, can I do the approach And can I ask for the number? Doesn't matter what their response is. I have to at least ask 10 times. You'll find also doing that, you'll start to take their responses less personally. And then over time, you'll be able to go where you can approach like 20 women in a day, and you won't care if they all say yes to you or if they all want to talk to you or if you get all the numbers. Just the approaching itself, you'll be so less nervous about it that you'll be able to easily do that. So then you'll find yourself in environments where you actually see women that you want to like talk to and date. And because you're not practicing on them, you'll be more apt to get the results you want. Because here's the thing, going in public to practice approaches, you're going to be approaching and practicing on women for the most part that you don't really know, you don't really care about. But you practice on them so that way you're not nervous in scenarios where you see women you actually want to talk to, because to them, they'll just be another woman, whereas before they were the end all be all that you had to make it work with, and you won't have those nerves anymore. So keep on practicing. Good job on you, guy. I appreciate the feedback. All right. We got a question in the chat, and the question goes, are there guys in relationships on 100 plus first dates and did not see any good girlfriend candidates? So I'm assuming this means that you've gone out with 100 women and you didn't see any good girlfriend candidates, right? So first off, I'll say kudos to getting 100 dates. Like, that's hard for almost any guys to get. Most guys struggle to get even 10 dates in their lifetime. So you getting 100, fantastic. I would need to know what your vetting process is, because a lot of that is based on what kind of things you're actually looking for in women. And also, I've said on the show before that men oftentimes process things way faster than women do. So like, whereas men after 2 or 3 dates are ready to basically wife up a woman typically needs 2 or 3 months to solidify her feelings and do some vetting, right? So the downside of a man's approach is that we can also go on dates where it's like, after one date, we're like, maybe she didn't kiss me, or I wasn't feeling a vibe. And so, she's not going to be any good. She's out. And I think guys can also do a better job at not assessing so quickly. Like, if you're going on 100 first dates and none of those women ended up working out, that tells me that you're rushing through your analysis process and you're not giving them a chance to really like go out more than one time to really see, okay, so let me see what they're about. Because hey, for all the things that men say about women being like, oh, women just whatever. The reality is that, there are women out there that are also shy on first dates and that maybe are apprehensive and nervous, and maybe they don't want to be touchy-feely that first date because they don't want to give away too much, or they don't also know the process of how dating works. Because let's be real, a lot of people these days, men and women, are growing up in single parent households, especially if they grew up with single moms that don't know how to teach them how to act, or they've been around a mom that said like, well, just focus on your studies, don't focus on men. And so they haven't learned what flirtation looks like. They haven't learned what signals to show a guy that indicate that she's open to more than just, touching and hand holding on a date, And so just like I say with women, you got to give a guy more than one date. Some of these women, it might behoove you to say, okay, maybe I wasn't feeling a complete spark on that first date, but we had a good conversation. She was cordial enough. She smelled nice. And so maybe I should give her a couple more dates before I completely reject her, because getting a big amount of first dates is great, but we really want to look for, what things are you bypassing? Or when you're saying yes to these dates, what kind of women are you saying yes to that you end up not really liking in the long run, So consider those things. Look at like how you're dating and the women that you're inviting on dates and seeing, what you're looking at and assessing, because there could have been women within that crop of 100 that maybe were great dates, but you just really didn't like analyze them in the way that gave them the benefit to give them more chances to see how they could work out. So just some food for thought. He says, it's hard being 49. Women in their 40s are insufferable and not open to new guys. I actually do better with women 18 to 35, but I'm not the target of the women who are serious about relationships. So, well, the reality is, I helped a guy a couple of years ago who is now 43, and his wife just turned 34, I think. And that age range worked for them, and in my past, I dated women who were about 10 to 12 years younger than me. I found for me successfully, most women that I've dated successfully have been closer to my age, if not actually a couple months older, and I'm 43 now. So I will say this, that I think you being 49, I think your dating pool is actually good because you can make it a lot bigger. And I never had the best success dating women under 20. So I would say in terms of you look at women that are going to be more serious, your best age range, honestly, funny enough, this is the age range that Kevin Samuels used to call the danger zone for women. And that's ages like 27 to like 33, because they're just old enough to where ideally they're out of the party phase. They're out of the phase where they think they're the hot stuff and that any guy wants them. And they're starting to realize, okay, I'm getting to those ages where if I wait too much longer, it's going to be harder to have kids. And you being 49, I'm going to assume maybe you don't want kids. So it is what that can make it harder also. I always told women up front, I don't want kids. So I had to contend with that. But suffice to say that yeah, at that age, you're thinking, okay, I realize at some point my looks are going to start to go, and my girlfriends around me are starting to be in more super serious relationships. And so I need to figure out what that looks like for me, because if I like a 27-year-old woman is looking at like, okay, if I start dating a guy now, minimum 2 years of dating before we even talk about marriage. And there's going to probably be another year-long like engagement. So if I'm 27 now, if I start dating somebody today, by the time we get super serious enough for marriage, I'll be 30. And then how much longer do I want to wait within that window to have to wait longer, you know? And so I would say for your age range, I'd say 27 to 35 or 34 or so would be a good age range pocket. Now, at 49, you could very well find a woman that's in her late 30s to early 40s. That's also great. I've met some of those women. I do recognize that those women typically have more relationship baggage, whether it's because they have kids and they've been divorced before, or they've dated so long that they're very rigid in the things that they want and aren't willing to tolerate and sacrifice certain things, and they can be harder to date. But they are out there, and they are women that are also looking for love and that can be good candidates. But again, I'm saying if you're looking for women that are ranging from like not being in their party phase to not being completely burned out or have complete baggage, that 27 to 35 is a good pocket to go. If you're on dating apps, you can set your limit to those ages and be perfectly fine. But also, as I say, get yourself out there more, network at different places, and also understand too, at 49, you got to recognize that as we get older, we tend to be stuck in our ways too. And we want things to happen the way that we want them. And it can be very easy to be like, don't want to have to try to sacrifice what I want to do or compromise things for this other person, or do I want to keep doing what I'm doing because I'm 49, I can do what I want to do. And there's no wrong answer to that, but just understand that you have to recognize within yourself that there may be things that you are also not wanting to give up or compromise on that could be to the detriment of a long-term relationship. So consider that. But hey, at the age that you're at, you're ideally more successful. You have more money for yourself. You're a bit more stoic in the way that you live life. Less things bother you. And women in the age range of 27 to 35 are going to really, really like that, especially if like at that age range, they dated enough bozos to kind of know what a good man looks like. And seeing you, they should see that you're a good man. All right. And they're going to follow your lead a lot easier, because if they've been dating up to that point and haven't gotten to a relationship, they're a bit more open to the idea that maybe they don't want to carry the burden. They've worked at jobs enough to know, like, maybe I don't need to be the breadwinner. Maybe I can, like, listen to a guy and follow his leadership. And within that age range, they're a bit more open to that. So just consider that and keep me posted on how your dating life is going. Hopefully the stuff that I'm putting out there is helping you out in your journey. And I'm always open to answer questions. All right. Somebody said here, 28 here, any woman I've tried to date above 30 may have unintentionally put a lot of pressure on me. Not from, and then the other guy said 27, 33 are looking for no kids, never married dudes. And then the other guy says, not from my experience, 27 to 30, you can be right depending on the girl. 30 plus, most women I know have a huge epiphany and are looking to get married a year ago and wanted kids yesterday. Well, I will say this, that part is true. I have found the older women get, especially when you get into their like past 35, especially if they want to have kids, they're racing the clock. Like, the clock's ticking. I want to have a kid today than yesterday. Guess what, though, guys? Just because they want that, it doesn't mean that, A, that they'll get it, and B, that they're not willing to wait for the right guy at his pace. Like, the reality is, women would rather not rush into a relationship with a guy that in the long term they don't have high attraction for and that they don't see potential for. And so what that means is that, let's say she's 38. Let's say this guy, right? He's 49. So let's say he meets a 38-year-old, knocks his socks off, and she has all the things he ever wanted, right? And she's talking that stuff about like, well, I mean, I want to get into a serious relationship because ideally I'll be married within the next year, blah, 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 blah. If I were him, you know what I would say? I would say, well, we'll see how it goes. I'm not looking to rush stuff because honestly, like even if we get along great, I know that building a relationship and a rapport takes time, and getting to know another person takes time. And that could easily take me like a year or two. So I'd say to them, if that's not on your time schedule, that's totally fine. We can keep things the way they are, or we can just see other people. And then if we decided later on that we want to get resituated, we can see how it goes. But I need you guys to understand that at the end of the day, women want to follow the lead of a man. And too many men are in the habit of thinking that they have to cater to a woman and follow her schedule. And to be fair, on this channel, I say, you know, when you're dating a woman, you kind of have to go at her pace as it pertains to like, you know, when to get into the relationship, when to hook up, etc. But ultimately, women are looking to follow your lead and see you as the leader and follow your plan. And too many guys, their plan is, I'll just do what she wants to do. So they think, well, if I want to keep her, I gotta propose to her within a year, and I gotta have a kid within a year. And I've seen those relationships. And what will happen is this: the guy thinking he needs to follow the woman's lead will do all the stuff that she wanted, and then cut to they have a kid within a year, they get married within a year and a half, and then cut to the woman being like, I think we just rushed things and it was too soon. Now, the guy thought that early on, but he also thought, but no, if I want to keep her, I got to do what she wants to do. And then they get bitten in the end with her complaining that it's too soon and they rush things and blah, 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 blah. So understand, just because a woman has a wish list of when things should be happening, it doesn't mean it's a great timeline, and they're still looking for you to have better judgment on what that looks like. So to this guy's point, just because she wants to rush into having a kid and being in a relationship, that's not going to be beneficial, especially if they do that. Like I have a friend that said like, oh, I want to get married within a year and whatever, this and that. And I had to tell her, but if you rush it and then you have the kid and then you realize after that you guys weren't compatible, now you have a kid with somebody that it wasn't going to work out with long-term, that you're going to be fighting with all the time now. And then every time you look at that kid, you're reminded of the guy that got you the kid that you don't like anymore. So understand, this is why I tell you guys, like, you know, don't think that women's emotions are things you should be led by, because their feelings change on a dime. And you cannot follow a woman's lead in part because if her lead is based on what she's feeling in the moment, the plan that she has today could actually be a bad plan long-term that she's going to recognize at some point, even if in the moment she's not recognizing that. All right. So just some food for thought. Guy said, I'm also hampered by being in a smaller metro and cannot move. That sucks. Like, and the thing, here's the thing. Those are choices that we make. Like when I lived in, I lived in Virginia. I was born in Virginia, raised in Virginia. I knew being in Virginia, it's not that like, you know, Richmond or Hampton don't have like a decent enough population, but I was primarily in the suburbs. Me being in the suburbs, unless I'm driving out consistently to the metro area, I'm not going to meet a lot of women. And so I had to move to different areas. I moved to Atlanta. I now live in LA, where I knew there'd be an abundance of people in those places to meet should I decide to. So these are all choices we make. So I don't know why you can't move. It could be, I don't know what the reason is, whether it's your job, whether it's you have family you're taking care of. But at the end of the day, these are all choices. And so you're making a choice, whether you want to say it is or not, you're making a choice to stay where you're at, which means you're only open to the pool of women that are around you. Now, you have to ask yourself, have you actually exhausted all possibilities of meeting any women ever? Because even in a town with a small population, you're not meeting every woman. Like you're on a dating app, you're swiping here and there, and you're matching with certain people, but you're not meeting all women. Are you going to, you know, networking events? Are you going to certain classes? Are you going to activities where there'll be other people there? I had a guy I met recently. No, I did an interview. I did an interview with a guy that's going to be coming up shortly, where I asked him how he met his wife. And he was like, yeah, like, you know, he was a guy he used to be into poker. And so he would go from state to state where he would be giving instructions to guys on how to do poker stuff. And it just so happened that she eventually joined that team and started like helping with some of the classes he was doing. And so he met her that way. He wasn't going out there trying to meet anybody. He was like content being a guy that teaches poker and goes state to state doing that. And in the process, this girl came on the team. They met, they clicked, they got married. They've been together 10 years and married for 3 years. But he wasn't seeking that out. But also, he was going to different locales and meeting people. Now, obviously, I'm not a fan of long distance relationships, but I've also found if you meet women as you're out and about living your life, whether it's you're traveling, going to different places, you will find that if you build a rapport with that woman, you keep in touch with her, women will start to like you enough to where they'll say, hey, I need a reason now to live near this guy because I really, really like him. But if you're not leaving open that possibility, then yeah, your pool's going to be short. So again, I don't recommend outwardly seeking out people that are long distance, but if in your travels and going out there and just trying to make yourself known, you meet other women, then that's a way to connect with people outside of your metro area where you can start talking to them and you can start building rapport. You can try to see each other back and forth. And I say that as a caveat because again, I'm not the guy that's going to be preaching the whole do long distance dating thing, right? My thing is this: if you are going to do that, there needs to be intentionality behind this is going to be for a finite amount of time. And then if we feel this is working out, either me or this other person is going to move. Ideally, she's going to move to you because that typically works out a lot better. This guy says, I have custody and tenure. Yeah, so like I said, so again, those are still choices, but like I understand the thing, especially with custody, it gets difficult because you're sharing it with another person. So obviously it makes it hard to maneuver and move out of state. And with tenure, that means you got whatever job you had, you got really good pay going on. So again, if that's a situation, you got to look at, okay, this is my current situation. You have one or two options. You can use that as an excuse to not meet women, or you can say, these are my situations. So in what way can I actively go out there and meet women in a way that's going to be conductive and conducive to what my current lifestyle is? Because given your current lifestyle, which again is a choice, I'm not saying give that up. I'm saying there are ways to still have the lifestyle that you're having and meet women. And you have to figure out what those things are versus, because here's the thing. I'm just a guy that never buys into like, woe is me, because my life is this way, I have to have built-in excuses to not get what I want. I fully believe that people can get the things that they want regardless of their situation. They just have to figure out a way to work it out. So you got custody, you got tenure. Custody means that you don't have your kid. Well, it could mean you have wherever kids you have all the time. It could be part of the time. So whether your ex or whatever is able to have custody part of the time, or whether you're able to have people that are able to look after your kid, you have ways to build in dating because you clearly said you've been dating. So you have ways to build in dating, and you have ways to build that in a way where you can find the kind of women that you want. And if you've exhausted all possibilities in the location that you're living at, then I would say it's time to bring in recruits, or it's time to figure out different ways to meet women that are willing to come to you, whether they're, a town over, a city over, a state over, whatever, but as nearby to you as possible. Okay. But at the end of the day, like I said, you have to look at your situation and decide if you want to date and you want a woman, then you got to find ways to make that work versus having the excuse of like, all the women I've dated are dumb and stupid and I've just exhausted all possibilities or whatever, because they are out there. Again, at the age that you're at, your dating range legitimately is from like 23 to like 48. Somewhere within that range in your town, there's a woman there or several women there that would date you. Whether you found them or not, it's a different story, but they are available. I've been in towns that are seemingly hard to date in and managed to find women. So you got to look at that because again, I just don't want you thinking, coming up with the excuse of like, I just can't do it. It's a wrap. If you choose to make that excuse, you're making the choice to be single, and you're in your right to make that. I don't know why you'd be watching this channel if you want to just be single, but it is what it is. But on this channel, I'm all about self-responsibility and making things happen. You can make things happen. You just got to look at how that's going to be possible. Just saying. All right. So speaking of some of that stuff, there were some other things that I kind of wanted to go over. I saw some interesting posts on, oh, you know what? No, I want to go over this story. Okay. So there's a story that I saw on a website this past week on CNN of all places, right? And I wanted to read this to you guys because it highlights a few things. It highlights what happens when you as a guy stop focusing so much on women and focus more on living your life. And it also points out the hypocrisy of women, and it points out the idea that women are never going to give you the full story of previous relationships, and or it's going to be worded up in a way where it looks pretty, so it doesn't make them look like the bad guy. But I wanted to go through this story. I thought it was very entertaining, and it shows off the things I just talked about. So let's bring this story to the stage. So I saw this story this week, and I've been saving this for like a week now because I really wanted to go over it to point out some things, right? So let me see. I'll widen this out a little bit so it looks better. Okay, so this story, CNN, this is not even like a news story, right? It's the fact that CNN is already reporting this kind of stuff. It's kind of irksome. But The story was her boyfriend fell asleep on the train. Then she spent the 6-hour journey talking to her future husband. So this woman is on a trip with a boyfriend, and you're going to see what happens as she meets this other guy on the train while her guy is sleeping. So I'll summarize. It's a bit of a long article, but I'll go through it. Basically, we have here this woman named, it looks like Mayor Clifford. So the gist of it is this. She was on a train, and she was with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend, this is in the early 2000s, and her boyfriend's asleep. She's looking out the window thinking like, okay, this is going to be a boring trip. And so she decides to go to the smoking carriage, which they still had back in the early 2000s, right? And so she was a social smoker, and she walked into the smoking area and saw a guy with a large backpack, asked him for a cigarette lighter, and he obliged. And then she says, somehow we sat down and started talking. Translation, she saw him, thought he was cute, sat down, sparked a conversation. And she says, I just remember being struck by how easy it was. Like there was a real sense of familiarity. So the guy, hear him tell it. He says, his name's Andy. He's 27, or he was 27. And he grew up in New England. He just returned from a stint across Tanzania and Zanzibar. I just got back from a trip from Kenya where I got to cross over to the Tanzania border. Fantastic trip, but I digress. Anyway, so he says, time away from the UK had given Andy the headspace to think and reconsider his approach to life, relationships, work, and travel. He said, I kind of not had a great relationship prior to Mayor, and not really any great relationships, I guess. He says, I'm not putting any blame on anything or anything. People just are wrong for each other. But I made this conscious decision that I wasn't going to be seeking a relationship. I wasn't going to basically talk to anyone or put myself out there in any way, shape, or form. I just needed to get my head back together. So this guy was like, you know what? I've been focusing on relationships too much. And so you know what? Rather than do that, I'm going to just going to just get my head back together, get my life straight, do the things that I like to do, and focus on that instead. And I told you guys before, sometimes the best way to meet women is just to not focus so much on them, but to focus on your goals, your dreams, living your life. And as you're doing that, women out there are going to come across you. They're going to see that. You're going to feel so easygoing because you're focusing more on just having a good time with life versus with her. And by doing that, she's going to be like, he seems to be living a really carefree life. I want to jump into his life versus what most guys do, which is I want to find a woman and then I'm going to jump into her life. Women don't want to be the leader of your life. They want to be jumping into yours and have you lead them. So he says after Tanzania, he was struck by the landscape, blah, blah, blah. I went on safari. I heard of zebras. It was beautiful. And I was like, whatever you've done in your life or whatever has been done to you, good or bad, it's led you to this amazing moment, blah, 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 blah. So he flies back to London to catch a train. He misses the first train. So he ends up on the second train, at which point, by coincidence, he meets this girl, right? So he says, I'm sitting in the smoking compartment. The train starts, door slides open, and this woman walks through and asks me if I've got a light. And so not only was it immediately after I'd kind of said, I'm going to open myself up to the world, but I'd missed the train that I was supposed to be on, and this person I met through a happy accident. So at that moment on the train, both of them say, we weren't necessarily looking at this as like, we're going to be romantic. We were just cool people to talk to each other, right? So, but it says, still, Mara was struck by the thought that the connection was unreal with Andy. They were strangers, but they opened up quickly. So already, and she says also, to be fair, she says she told Andy that she was traveling with a boyfriend. And so as far as they're concerned, it's just a potential friendship, right? Okay. So then she says, he obviously told me the story about being being wherever and seeing the zebras. And she says, that's also what I was struck by. I think that it takes a certain type of person to be able to notice those special moments when they happen. So in other words, what is this guy doing? He's not trying to game her. He's just saying, I went to this country. I saw this thing. This was amazing. She's being able to experience him living life to the fullest. Meanwhile, in the train cartridge, her boyfriend's asleep. Not a sin. We all get tired on trains, but just observe, she's looking at the boyfriend being asleep, and this guy talking about the abundant life he's living and the experiences he's having, and she's starting to see, oh, this is a really special guy. So then she shares her childhood about being in New Zealand, moving to the UK. She says it felt like both of us had that approach to life of just really noticing the special moments and being impressed by the beauty in the world. At some point, she thought about her boyfriend, went to go check on him. He was still asleep. So then she goes right back to the carriage to talk to Andy, and they talked for 6 hours of the trip. And she remembers him saying, "You're a really sound lady," and being impressed by that expression and laughing at it. So Andy thought it was sweet. Oh, Andy was sweet that she thought, but there was nothing romantic about their connection, just a potential friendship, just talking, whatever, right? Andy says it was a really easy chat, just kind of our whole general vibe just clicked. I don't remember thinking she's really hot, just that she's really cool, and it was nice to get to know her, right? And then she also says she wasn't thinking he's just hot. It was just, oh, he's cool. So at some point, the train's getting to the thing. Now, here's where things start to take a turn. Because again, this guy's just chatting up, living his life, not trying to do anything. Now, what do I tell you guys? I tell you guys, when women have high interest, they're going to do things intentionally or unintentionally to be able to let you know that there's a level of interest there. So what does she do? As the train's about to get to the thing, Bear spontaneously wrote down her email address on Andy's leftover anti-malaria tablet packet. Stay in touch, she said, before saying goodbye. So she took a random medicine packet that he had, found some kind of way to write on it, and wrote the email address. Now, in the moment, she's probably thinking, this doesn't mean I like him. This doesn't mean I'm trying to make it a thing. I still care for my boyfriend. But what does she do? He did not ask her for an email. She decided of her own accord to ask him for a way to write down some stuff, and then took out something to write with and wrote down her information and said, let's keep in touch. That is high attraction level interest signals 101. Now, here's the problem. She's got a boyfriend. So am I condoning her behavior in this moment? I am not. But I want you guys to understand that regardless of a woman's situation in life, whether she's with another person, whether she's married, when she sees somebody that she wholeheartedly has high interest in, even if she doesn't call it that in the moment, she's going to do stuff like this. She's going to be the one, because you guys will write to me like, I'm trying to get her to give me my contact information, but she just won't give me, she just giving me like the socials and I get blah, blah, blah. And I tell you guys, women that like you are going to enthusiastically give you their contact information with no struggle at all. So continuing on, after she left the carriage, Andy says he heard two people behind him that couldn't believe this hot chick came and just talked to him, because that just doesn't normally happen. Exactly. So the fact that she's brushing this off is like, oh, I just wanted to keep in touch. But no, you as a guy know, most women are just haphazardly just giving you contact information and saying, contact me later. So these other people clearly saw what he had yet to see, but was obviously there, right? So then what happens? They get off a train, and she says, when I got off the train, and that whole weekend around Edinburgh, even though I was with the other person, I kept thinking, gosh, I hope I bump into that guy, Andy, again. And she didn't. So at this point, a woman that has high interest in her boyfriend and is faithful, what is she going to do? Well, I'll never hear from that guy again, but it's cool because I have my loving boyfriend here. That didn't happen. What happened instead was this. They didn't hear from each other. So a week or so later, she dropped Andy a friendly email. Hey, traveling man, the message began. And then we started emailing back and forth. Who started the contact? And I stress this because you guys are thinking, if I get a woman's number and we exchange information, I got to be the one to contact her, and I got to reach out to her nonstop and be the first one. I'm trying to tell you guys, women, their thumbs magically work when they have high interest. Their typing, emailing fingers magically are able to make a message to you when they have high interest and want to stay in contact with you, as this woman demonstrates. Now, again, I don't condone her behavior because she still got a boyfriend. She would have been better to have dumped the boyfriend and then started contacting this guy. But as we all know, guys, women tend to monkey branch. They don't want to get rid of one relationship without knowing that they can hop over to another one. So this unfortunately, this behavior isn't out of the norm. I'm just pointing out to you, I don't like it, but women will do this, right? So let's watch how CNN tries to pretty up her actions. So it says, and then we started emailing back and forth, she recalls. A couple weeks later, Mayer told her best friend Trudy about her new pen pal. She described the story of how they'd met on the train, kept each other company for the duration of the journey, and swapped details. I remember Trudy saying to me, quote, "I think that there's something between you two." And I was like, oh, don't be ridiculous. He's so nice, just a good friend. Now, what did this friend not say? The friend did not say, but remember, you have a boyfriend that you really like, that you need to be faithful to. You shouldn't be writing this other guy. No, this other friend of hers is also trying to push the romantic angle. Oh, you guys met on the train and talk for hours. That's so romantic. Oh my God, you guys could be a thing. And unfortunately, this is what females friends will do, is they're all for which story sounds more romantic, and they're going to push their friend towards that one, even if they're already in a relationship. Now, at no time here did this woman say the relationship with her current boyfriend was bad or toxic or anything. This other guy is doing nothing wrong. So from this boyfriend's perspective, this is a horrible story. Think about this. I wouldn't sleep on a train for 6 hours, and I wake up and my girlfriend's suddenly talking to another guy and getting his information from him, and now I was trying to keep in contact with him behind my back. Like, on the guy side of things, this is not a romantic story. I'm just telling you this, guys, because again, I'm trying to push to you that when women have high interest, even if they're in something that they seemingly are already happy with, they will move mountains to be with the guy they truly like. Again, how is CNN going to pretty this up? So we go to down here, but the emails didn't drop off. In fact, they became more frequent as the weeks turned into months. We ended up just communicating on the regular, and that progressed from emails to phone calls, recalls Mayer. By then, here we go. By then, Mayer's bartender boyfriend was in the past, but she still didn't see Annie as a potential love interest. Bullcrap. But here's the thing, right? How did they pretty this up? Well, they say weeks turn into months. Months on, the boyfriend was in the past. But when they first started contact, they weren't. When she first started emailing him and doing phone calls, he was still very much in the picture. So what CNN's trying to do is say, but her actions are justified because, by the point they were in heavy contact, it was no longer a thing. I imagine that part of the reason they broke up was because he was able to see that she was contacting this other guy more and talking to him on the phone more and probably having text message sessions. And he was able to see that stuff and realize, what is my girlfriend doing? Right? So I put all this out just to say, guys, that don't let women gaslight you into thinking that, we get made to believe, oh, it's not that I don't want to give you the number, or it's not that I don't want to contact you, XYZ. When women, Doc Love used to say, high interest level cuts everything. When women have a high interest, they're going to do all the things to show you that they like you. And they're going to give you numbers, and they're going to give you emails. They're going to give you 5 different ways to contact them, and they're going to reach out to you first. And it's not that you as a guy can't do some of these things. Like, it's fine to ask women for information. It's fine to be the first one to reach out. But I'm letting you know this is an example of the level of effort that women are going to put forth when they really, really, really want to be with you. And you should be accepting nothing less. So the next time you are talking to a girl and you're like, hey, let me get your number. And they're like, I don't know. Maybe I can just give you my social. That is not a woman that has high interest. You should stop, because you are not going to try to force a woman to like you when there are women out there like this that will practically throw themselves at you when they have a high interest, even to the point where they will give up previous guys they were dating, guys that they're currently dating, husbands that they're currently with. They will sacrifice all that stuff. And I'm not saying you should take those women, because those are women that if they're with you and they find somebody better, they'll do the same stuff to you. I'm just pointing out and giving you another example of when women want to, they will. So don't fall for the okie doke of women making you believe that you have to chase them in order to get them. Because as you saw in this example, if she's chasing you, not only can she not be replacing you, she will replace you from the previous guys that she was dating. Just want to point that out, guys. Just saying. Yeah, diabolical. She knew of course she knew what she was doing. And here's the thing. CNN's going to put it like that because we're in the era now where women can do no wrong, and all their decisions that they do and all their actions that they do are justified. So it was perfectly fine for her to just have an innocent back and forth with a guy she met, even though it's not her boyfriend. It was perfectly fine for her friend to point out that, oh, you two sound like you could be a couple, even though she was swearing up and down, no, we're just friends. Everybody saw it, but then because she didn't want to identify herself as a woman that had the potential to cheat on her boyfriend. But that's exactly what she was doing this entire time, as you were able to see. Just saying. Okay, beyond that, there were a couple of Reddit posts I wanted to go over that I thought were really interesting. And by the way, guys, if you have any questions you want to ask me during the course of the show, I will happily answer those as well. Just leave them in the chat. All right. So there was a Reddit post. Actually, before we get to the Reddit post, there was a woman that left a response on one of my videos. So a few years ago, I did a video called I Rejected Her Because She's Out of My League. And it was talking about this guy who basically, he connected with a woman and they were talking back and forth for a little bit. And then she just ghosted him for like 3 months, right? Came back, started reconnecting with him, talking to him again, and was like trying to push, hey, we should meet up. Hey, I want to see you in person. Hey, we should meet up. And guy was just like so in his head about not being the right guy or being shorter than her or all this other stuff that he self-sabotaged by never agreeing to meet up. And eventually she just stopped asking and then found some other person, right? And I try to stress to you guys that just because you think you're out of a woman's league, all that matters is if she sees you as somebody that's in her league and a potential dating partner, then sometimes you got to bypass your low self-esteem and go with what she's thinking and feeling. If she's saying you're good enough for me, you got to go with that and get out of your head that you're doing her a favor by preemptively cock-blocking yourself from her. So I had a woman that actually commented under that I thought would be good for you guys to hear. So this woman said in response to that video, I'm one of those women and it feels awful. So she's saying she's very much like the woman in the video that is like, I have a guy that I like, and I'm like, dude, I want to be with you, but because of the guy's low self-esteem, it's not happening. So she says, the guy in question, he put me on a pedestal. He put me on a pedestal and won't take me off of it. And that's why I tell you guys, women don't want you to think of them like higher up. Like they want to be the ones that are coming into your frame. They want to be the ones that are looking up to you. Most women you're going to date are going to be shorter than you. And so by proxy of that, they're going to look up to you. That is a metaphor. Women want to look up to you. And part of that is they want to look up to a guy that has confidence and that thinks highly of himself. So when you come and try to put them on a pedestal and say, well, I'm less than you, women don't want that. Women don't find that attractive. And women don't understand why you as a guy are even doing that in the first place. She says, I've shared with him some of my flaws because she doesn't want to be on a pedestal, that yes, I may be attractive and likable. I have my own issues and challenges that are his strengths. I see how he could be an authentic partner, someone who I can be my flawed self with and be unconditionally loved and vice versa. He could make me feel safe, seen, and cherished, which men who think they have a lot of options don't. And so here's the thing, right? What she's saying right here is absolutely true. Like, part of the reason women don't want to be put on a pedestal is because they know internally that they have flaws. Whether or not you've been able to see them yet, they know they can be a bit anxious or nervous, or they got that weird mole on the side they haven't shown you yet, or they feel apprehensive about how they look sometimes. And so they know going into it that because they have these flaws, they don't want somebody that's coming in, look at them as if they're perfect, because what if they can't live up to that ideal? They know they're going to end up disappointing you, and that's going to be, to them, a worse fate than death. So yeah, they want a guy to come in and be able to authentically see them as a flawed person that you're still going to love in spite of her flaws. And unfortunately, most guys go into thinking, I got to see her as perfect and she can do no wrong. And that puts a lot of pressure on a woman. And once a woman starts feeling pressure to have to be perfect all the time, you're going to probably lose that woman. So, and then she also says, she said a thing about like men who have a lot of options aren't able to make them feel safe, seen, and cherished. Well, understand, guy, as a guy, you need to always have the thought process that you can get other women and that you have a lot of options, but that the option that you choose also deserves to feel safe, seen, and cherished. So it's not that when I tell you guys you need to feel as though you can get a lot of options, that doesn't mean that that when you choose an option, you don't treat them as special, because there's going to be levels of you're going to treat them a bit different than other women. It's just, I don't want you to buy into the lie that she's any different than other women. Like, the woman you're with, as great as she is, she can still lie. She can still talk behind your back. She can still have days where she's not going to be her best self and unintentionally say something to hurt your feelings. Like, I want you to have a realistic version of this woman that you're going to see as special, but not so special that she's like a rare unicorn that won't act like other women, if you catch my drift. So anyway, so she says, but he only sees what he wants to see in our potential. He only lets me in to a certain level so we don't get to know each other more. He doesn't want to see the real me because he already believes he does, and this glossy version isn't accurate. I would be totally supportive, helping him with his looks so he feels more confident. Just a little styling and grooming goes a long way. We women just like it when men do self-care, like how they prefer we do the same. Exactly. Women, and this is a lie that a lot of men buy into because we think that women want us to be 100% perfect or have six figures in the bank account and six-figure abs and all sorts of stuff. And the reality is most women I have found just want a guy that's able to see them in a real way and approach them in a real way and care about them and show that they not see them as equals, but that they deserve equal treatment, And so many guys think if I'm not this, these are the guys that are like, if I'm not 100% perfect, if my life's not 100% there the way it needs to be, if I don't have the job that's 100% making the money, then blah, blah, then I'm not worth dating and I have no value. And as a guy that has dated women while living on other people's couches, while having next to no money, while not having a job of any kind, I can assure you, despite the negative reputation that a lot of the red pill spaces say about women, most women are fine with that if the guy's willing to be a little more open and show that he's able to care for her and not judge her. Like, women I find are willing to date a guy that has less if he's not judging her for having more. And I find a lot of guys, unfortunately, live in that space where I got to be the breadwinner. And if I can't be, then I'm going to preemptively assume she's going to judge me. And so I'm going to feel some kind of way about that. I've just found that not to be true. And that's maybe my experience. But also, I have a healthy level of self-esteem about myself to where I don't let, women earning more than me or being in a better position than me hit on my self-esteem, And so, yeah, most women just want a guy that's going to show up a little bit better, maybe not have to be in a tux all the time, but maybe iron your shirts, maybe have a pants to shirt combination that works well together, stuff like that. Women will like that, putting a little effort forth. And that way, they find if you as a guy are willing to do that, you'll feel better about yourself. Your self-esteem will be boosted. And now she can respect you more. But most men are just like, I want to be as I am and be in this wrinkled shirt and smell weird or whatever. You're not going to keep women like that. She says, he could help me not be so intimidated at the gym and stand by me when I have to deal with my abusive, toxic family. He has no idea what he could offer to improve my life. And after several earnest attempts, I have to let this mutually empowering potential go. So what she's saying, I don't want to be seen as perfect. I don't think this guy's out of my league, but he thinks that, and that's hampering our connection. And women at large, they want you to have a healthy level of self-esteem. But this is why I tell you guys that you have to take off the table what you think women should want from you and look objectively at what you're offering, what's being said yes to, and then decide, is what she's saying yes to good enough? Because here's the reality. If you're a guy that you're a blue collar guy, you're making $50,000 a year, women will date you. But if your mindset is, I'm not good enough where I'm at for women to date me, then you're going to preemptively get rid of women that actually want to be with you because you have a good personality, because they like the fact that you have hours to spend with them. The friend I talked about earlier in the show, she was saying that she dated guys that had that 9 to 5 and make six figures, but they never have time for her. They're not emotionally available. They're not willing to give her what she really needs in a relationship. And so even though the freelance guy she's dating is just kind of like, he's not earning the money she wishes that he would earn, he's able to do all these other things to where she feels like this is one of the better relationships she's had, right? So you got to take your judgment on the table of what you think women should want and say, this woman's telling me that how I am right now is totally cool. And she doesn't seem to be joking about that. So you know what? Let me go with that. Now, if you choose as a guy to want to do better for yourself as a result, fantastic. I think it's great if you're like, I want to do better for the betterment of this relationship, for the betterment of her, for me, or whatever. But also don't ignore her what she's saying, but how you are right now is totally fine. And I think too many men do the thing of self-sabotaging by trying to move themselves out of the way, thinking that I'm doing good for the woman by moving myself. And you have no idea. You're not listening at all to what she's saying she wants, which is you as you are right now. Just want to put that out there for you guys. All right. If we have questions in the chat, I'll be happy to answer them. Just leave them down in the chat. I think I have one more thing I want to go over here. Let's see which one I want to go over. Oh, this is a good one. Okay. So, because I get this question a lot, I happen to see this on a Reddit post, so I'm going to answer it. So, this guy wants to know if it's okay for him to just focus on one person after having done the thing of dating multiple people on first dates. And he wants to know, is this unhealthy attachment or is this clinginess? So here's his message. He says, I'm a 33-year-old guy in a major metropolitan city, and I'm looking for a long-term relationship. I've been fortunate enough to be photogenic, so he looks good, have important aspects of my life together, and have been told I'm charismatic and appropriate, open, or real in person. So I believe I meet a lot of the initial check boxes to build attraction. As a result, I don't have any issues getting matches and lining up 3 to 5 first dates in a week if I have the mental and emotional energy. I've noticed my personal behavior pattern is without fail. Go on 3 to 5 first dates. Most of the time, all of my first dates can be converted to second dates. Good for you, guy. That's a good ratio. It's 100%. Fantastic. But there's always one woman that has an X factor that truly draws me in and piques my interest. At this point, I can objectively remind myself the other women had positive qualities too. I even recall being physically attracted to them and to leave that door open, but I don't. Not even like maintenance text. However, once the woman with the X factor is in the picture, I lose all motivation to continue talking to the other women, and I only want to focus on one. I just want to get to know them better and try my best to further build foundational pieces of a healthy relationship. Trust, vulnerability, openness, etc. And it feels like my mind and soul don't have the energy to continue entertaining and doing the same with others. Objectively, I know I'm limiting my optionality. However, I can justify to myself why focusing on one is healthy, and I'm the antithesis of a roster keeper. Has anyone felt the same way and forced themselves to change up to optimize for optionality? Is this a type of unhealthy attachment I need to dig into with my therapist, or is this just normal and an effective and worthy approach to continue pursuing? So to start, I'll end with by saying this, is that it's not unhealthy. Most guys I've come across in doing this for 20 years now, most guys are out there wanting to only date one woman. So the wanting to just find that one person and solely be with them and not have to spend time, energy, effort, and money on other people, totally justified, right? But let's work backwards to this, right? So to start off with, he says that there's always one woman that has an X factor. So I try to stress to you guys this. After one date with one person, you do not know enough about them to have sniffed out any X factor. You just don't. Like, I know you think, and again, I've said on the show before, as guys, we tend to be making assessments and judgments about the women we're dating, like, very quickly. So as a guy, you might very well think after one date with like an hour and a half of conversation, you like the way she dressed, you like the way she smelled, you heard a little bit about her lifestyle, maybe she brought in some sexual innuendos, and you're like, wow, this date is better than the 4 dates I went on where that stuff didn't happen. So you know what? She's already got the X factor. She's already somebody I'm choosing. I want to get rid of these 4 other women. I just found in my dating life that one date is not enough to really get to know if this woman actually has an X factor, because X factor indicates that you see her as different from all of the women. And as I've learned, after 2 or 3 dates, you will come to learn most women are very much the same. So that woman on that first date that was shy and talking about being feminine, and about wanting to be a stay-at-home wife, you're like, oh, she's traditional. Oh, she's got these values, blah, 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 blah. By date 3, she could be on a date where she's yelling at a server, or she's telling you about an ex that she still has in the background, or all these other things, right? You do not know enough on date number 1 to really actually authentically know any one woman enough to be like, yep, she's the one I'm going to concentrate on. So that's why I really tell you guys to go on multiple dates with multiple women, because as you date each woman more, you're going to find out more stuff. And then you're going to discover, you know what? People can have really good behavior on that first, second, even third date. But by date 6, true colors are going to start to come out. True opinions are going to come out. She's going to start to get a little bit lax in how she's speaking to you or how she's doing certain things. And it takes time to suss that out. So you're giving women the benefit of the doubt after one date that they're an X factor, and you think you know, you have no idea. So even if you're feeling more things for one woman versus the other, I say it still behooves you to consider that your brain is tricking you because she's really, really pretty and smells really, really good, and she looks like everything you'd ever want, and you're thinking by default she's the one, but you don't actually know. So really consider dating a bit more with all those other people before you make a decision. Now, the second part, I don't think it's actually a bad thing if you only want to date one person. Like I talked about dating multiple people is a good thing for the reasons I just mentioned, but also a big reason, especially for guys that are just getting their feet wet in terms of the dating market. Early on, it's a really good idea for you as a guy to consider going on multiple dates with multiple women in the beginning, and then you can kind of like narrow down what you want, right? But here's why I do that, is because in the beginning, most guys are of the thought process that they can't get women. And so they end up thinking, I'm going to date this one woman, but I got to make it work out. She's got to be my end all be all, because if I don't make this work, oh my God. And what happens? You end up applying pressure to this one woman to make it have to happen, and that she should be your girlfriend. And when you do that, you apply so much pressure that women can feel that. When women feel pressure from guys, it feels like he wants me to choose right away. He wants to already wife me up. He's already telling me what I have to do and what not to do. He's already trying to be emotional. He's already trying to build vulnerability and openness about things that I'm not ready to take on quite yet. And it's a lot. And so men that haven't been in the habit of dating a lot of women, they have a limited mindset about who's going to be willing to date them. And then by proxy of that, they end up messing it up. Versus, let's say early in your dating life, you start out by, you're going to go on 3 to 5 dates a week with new women. So you swipe on 5 women, you take all of them out. It's a good time, right? And you do it the next week and the next week. What your brain starts to realize is, hey, I'm actually really good at getting women to go on dates. Like I'm really good at getting them on dates and then wanting to go on multiple dates, which means I'm actually good at building attraction. This is a good thing for me to know, because now part of my esteem is going to be, I know how to get women, and I know that women are easily replaceable. Meaning, if I go on, say this week, I go on dates with like 5 different women and none of them work out, I know that next week I can set up 5 more dates. Why is this a good thing? A lot of our fear comes from this idea that we're going to be alone forever and that we don't have the skill set to get more women if this one woman that I really, really want goes away. But if you have that mindset, you're going to be fearful, and you're always going to be forcing any one woman you date to have to work. Now, if early on you're dating multiple women, you're able to build up in your head that you can, in fact, date more women, to where if you lose a woman, you have no problem getting another woman. That is going to serve you well when you do start to date and you're dating more singularly, meaning you decide one day, you know what? This costs a lot of money to date multiple women. I'm going to just date one woman at a time. But you're going to go into that with a mindset of saying to yourself subconsciously, yeah, I'm going to date one woman at a time, but I know if this woman doesn't work out, I can easily replace her and get another date next week. And being able to do that removes the fear that most guys have that only date one woman of, if this doesn't work out, I'm going to be alone forever. And that's key. The key is that once you're able to build up your esteem enough to know that you can go out there and meet more women, you can choose to date one woman at a time or date multiple women at a time. And either way, you're not going to be rattled by that. Now, here's the thing. When you walk with the frame of, I can easily get women, then if you're dating one woman, you're not going to put pressure on her to have to make it work. So she's going to still get the feeling tone of, this guy feels like he can get women. Like it feels like if he gets rid of me, he'll have somebody else next week. Most guys think that's a negative thing if women feel that, but that's actually a positive, because women like men that other women want. Women like men who can get other women, because it means that he knows women and knows how to take care of them. And so she'll be in a contest with herself. She'll be like, I don't know if he's dating other people or not, but just in case he is, because I can't really tell, I need to be on my A game. And then they'll do things to make sure that they're in your good graces and that they're winning you over, versus what most guys do when they date one woman, which is, oh, I got to make sure I do everything right, and she's got to be perfect and pedestal this and that. And I think this guy here is worried that if he dates one woman, it's going to be unhealthy. He's going to be clingy. That tells me he hasn't gotten to the mind frame yet where he's dated enough women multiply to realize he can get other women if the one he wants goes away. Because here's the thing. It's fine if you think a woman has an X factor, but what I don't want you to do is think that because she has an X factor, you have to stay with her. And that if she does anything to rattle you or mess things up, that you can't just leave her, because her having an X factor is great, but that's no excuse for being able to, for her having poor behavior, for her talking to any kind of way, for her having multiple X's in the background and stuff like that. And you need to get to a point in your dating journey where you're so comfortable with the idea that you can get other women that you're like, you meet her, yeah, she's a unicorn. Yeah, she's got the X factor, but still, if she messes this up, I can find somebody else that also has an X factor. And so that's the thing. I don't think it's a bad thing to date one woman at a time, as long as you have the mindset that doesn't mean it has to work out, and that you've had the practice of knowing that you're still able to get multiple women or other women out there should this one mess up. Now, if you don't have the ability to do that, that means that A, you haven't dated multiple women. I recommend doing that. And also, you're in the mind frame of such that you don't think you can get other women. At the point that you're able to believe that you yourself have the ability to go out there and make things happen with multiple women, your dating life is going to increase. And you're going to find by default, and ironically, that more women are going to want to stay with you because they know that you have this self-esteem to recognize you are any woman's catch, and any woman will be lucky to have you, versus you feeling that you'd be lucky to get any woman. If you need help with that kind of mindset, you can go to HarryWilmington.com and sign up for coaching, and we can start talking you into how to think about yourself in a different capacity, to where you're not going to think that you got to just accept anything, and that if you date one woman, you got to make it work, So hopefully that answers that guy's question. And yeah, that's all I got for today, guys. Just want to come out here on a wonderful Saturday morning and talk to you guys. So hopefully the stuff that I said has helped you out. If you need my help or assistance on anything, you can go to HarryWilmington.com, sign up for coaching, sign up for my various programs. You can also write to me at HarryWilmington@gmail.com if you want me to answer one of your questions on one of these shows, all right? Be sure to like this video, subscribe, all the stuff. Check out my stuff. And like I said, guys, I got my book about how to attract women in any environment coming out very, very soon. So be on the lookout for updates on that. That's all I got. I am Harry Wilmington, and I will catch you guys on the next episode. Thanks for watching. Peace. Hey there, thanks for tuning in to Harry Dating Convos. Don't forget to visit HarryWilmington.com to download my free ebook, Texting Women Like a Boss. And while you're there, if you're ready to take things to the next level with your dating life, check out the Get Girls Academy membership program for exclusive strategies and live coaching. Go to HarryWilmington.com to learn more and join today. Lastly, if you've got a question you'd like answered on one of these shows, leave a comment below or write me at HarryWilmington@gmail.com. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.